Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Rainy Days with Tabs. I'm here again. This is part 2 with Amelia. We ended our conversation with you telling me your story from being engaged, previously engaged, and the tumultuous process that you had to endure during your engagement, before your engagement. And we ended the conversation with, the fact that we as women, or even men, I don't really know from the man's perspective. Hopefully I'll get that soon. But just how we wear those rose colored glasses.
Mhm.
And man, with those glasses, it's so easy to miss clear signs. And even more
Yes.
so, like, we refuse with those glasses on, we refuse to take advice from others. Like something
Yeah.
that you said very clearly that I resonate with so much um, was that from the beginning, people were like, your coworkers are like, girl, stay away. And something I've thought about in the past is like, I heard someone say, like, oh, when you tell people your business, your relationship business, if you tell people your relationship business, you're going to stay single.
Right.
And I used to hear that. And of course, at that point in time, I'm wearing my rose colored glasses. I'm like, yeah, people don't need to know
Mhm.
your business. It's all about me and him. It's us against the world.
Mhm.
And now, being on the outside of that, I'm like, oh my God, I should have listened. Like everybody was warning me, like literally telling me,
But it's not just you. I mean, men will have us think that, we keep our business in-house. That was every relationship I've ever been in. He was like, "Don't tell so and so your business. Don't run to your little girlfriends because it's between you and I." And that's cute, but you're basically negating all of the positive advice or the constructive criticism that could save your life or that could tell you, hey, this is how it looks from the outside. Might not be the healthiest thing for you. Or, girl, I noticed that you don't look like you've been taking care of yourself. Are you okay mentally? All
mm,
of that. You're just isolating yourself from getting sometimes the help that you need to see things clearly.
for sure, for sure. No, you said that perfectly, actually. Um, God. So, I mean, what were your thoughts after the fact? After being able to move, being able to leave? Did he at any point in time contact you and try to make things work again? Did he realize, like, man, I really messed up? I mean, they always come back, but you have a couple that'll be like, man, I really messed up. I'm gonna leave her alone. So, what was that process like for you after the fact of knowing, okay, like, I don't know, like, for me, it sucks because it's like, do you wish you would have listened to yourself, or you felt like I had to go through that? Because if I didn't go through that like I did, I would not have learned what I needed to learn.
Oh, I'm stubborn for sure. So I know, knowing myself, I mean, even I had at work, like a father figure of mine.
Mhm.
His name was Mike. I don't know why I don't call him. But he took me out one day after work and he took me to like Sam's Club and bought me pizza. And
Nice.
he was so sweet. And he was like, Amelia, do not get involved with Gerald. Like, do not do this. Do not go down that road. And um, people, when they speak to me, they assume that like I have a good head on my shoulder. So he started to kind of be like, asking me questions about what it was. And I didn't see that he wasn't necessarily trying to understand the relationship. He was just trying to get my headspace about why I thought it was a good idea. But in my head at the time, I was like, he needs me. Like, how can I leave this relationship when there is this damaged person? I'm damaged, he's damaged. Why can't we fix each other?
I have a
And
question
yes.
before you continue. I was gonna say, because I don't want to forget. You be
Right.
dropping so much. I'm like, I'm holding on to thoughts. I was gonna say, did you do you feel like it's a sign for us to like dip when we're not getting anything out of it and we're just constantly giving? Because
That's the
God,
thing. He was actually very generous. Like my ex-fiance, it was not even like a fully one-sided relationship. There were so many things that he offered into my life that I did need, that I thought also kept me there. He was financially more responsible than I was. He was well versed, very intelligent. He had this confidence that was like unshakable. I mean, there was a point where I wanted to quit my job, and he solely was like, okay, this is a plan. We're going to make sure. He inspired me to go work at Ulta for the first time when I didn't think that I had like the makeup skills to do so. He believed in me, and he drove me to there. He was like, walk in right now, ask for an interview. You're going to get the job. And I did. And so I was like, okay, this is not just a one-sided relationship. Like, he gives so much to me. He helped me like pay off my credit card. There was just a lot of different
mm,
experiences that I gained from being with him that
mhm,
made me feel like, okay, I'm not just pouring out my love to someone and it's going down like a black hole.
mm,
So, and we were so excited. Oh my gosh, when in the beginning, getting engaged, we were on this high, like honeymoon. We had so many plans. We got a 2-bedroom apartment. It was going to be like my office, and we decorated it well. We got him a new wardrobe. I successfully upgraded him, quote unquote. Um, so it was
yes.
all gravy. I mean, I was like the housewife. When I quit my job, I didn't work for like a month or so. He went to work, and I just ironed his shirts and made him lunch. And I was just living my fantasy. I was deep in it, like, oh yeah, this is the life. Like, soon we'll have babies and it will just be gravy. And then yeah, it all came crashing down rather quickly. Because it only lasts so long. When you create a fantasy, the reality will hit you like a ton of bricks. Oh yeah, this person has not changed. They're still exactly who they were when you met them, and you played yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I
That
mean,
is
sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, did that answer your question? I
Yeah. Yeah, it did. Because I don't know. Like, I'm just like, my mind is going crazy. This is the first
I
time that
prepared you for this.
I
I said
know, I know. I mean, but we did that on purpose because
we did.
I like to meet with my guests beforehand, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna talk about this, we're gonna talk about that. But I always say, like, okay, but don't tell me everything because I want my reaction to be, genuine. And so I not at all. I mean, did not expect any of it. And like you said, well, you didn't say this, but it really makes me think about like just the portrayals on social media. Like, here I
Mhm.
am, here we are, me and him at that time, thinking, this is amazing. Like, this is such great news. And for you to even post this engagement, my ex had told me that you were private, which is
Mhm.
one thing he said we had in common. And so it was a big deal. And so
Oh yeah.
to know
No.
it wasn't even something
Oh,
that, huh? No, it's
I
okay.
think I said his name. I'm sorry. No, but yeah, he knows. He was like, I don't post anyone I'm in a relationship with. Um, and I
I'm,
only posted the engagement photo. Like, that was it.
yeah.
And he will call me immediately. He'd be like, "You posted him? Like, who is this person? What are we doing?" And I couldn't tell anyone. Like, I was like, he's going to be dead. Everyone is going to kill him. And I didn't
For
want that. I didn't want that. I mean, my sister, it would have been, but she came down and she actually stayed with us for a while. And of course, he was like on his best behavior, and she didn't really like him. But I still didn't tell her, anything that had happened, because I was just like, I was ashamed. I was also like very confused because he was taking steps to try to get it better. We did see a therapist together. We saw him separately. Um, yeah, really quickly, honestly, I realized that I needed to get out of it. But by then it was like, okay, how would I do that? I don't have any money. I don't know where I'm
mm,
going to go.
mm,
And I also, there's a thing that happens, I think, with women in abusive relationships where it's like you don't want to call it what it is because then you have to really take some drastic action, and you just never thought you'd be that person. Like, if I admit that I'm in an abusive relationship, do I have to like go to a shelter? Like, am I gonna have to actually like take some, call someone? Who do I call? Like, I know the names and the resources, but I was like, it's not that serious yet.
Mm.
Everything was like, okay, this is bad, but I can handle it. It's not that serious yet. But yeah, I considered all of it. I mean, he was an alcoholic. It was, and you know what? Another thing I'll mention, I met his mom really early on, and that really influenced the narrative of our relationship because she was so supportive from the very beginning of everything we did. She wasn't a mentally well person herself, but she believed in him and she believed that like I was the best thing that ever happened to him. And so bonding with her gave me this like false sense of reassurance that I'm in the right place because I was like, well, if his mom is backing him up, I mean, she wasn't exactly backing up. She was like, you don't deserve her, but she was like also trying to do everything to make it work. If I could go running to her with problems and tattletale on him, and she would try to talk to him and um, keep us going. And she was our mediator sometimes. And um, he would go stay with her and give me a break for a few days and come back and, with flowers or something. And it was just a cycle of toxicity that was enabled by her and myself, especially. I'll always take responsibility for that aspect of it. Just like me not being able to say early on, this is the line, and we crossed it and it's done. My line was like constantly being erased. I was like, okay, now this is a line. Okay, now this is a line. And yeah, huge, huge lesson.
I was gonna say, I mean, I want to know your thoughts on this. I have my own thoughts, but I'm curious. Do you feel like, because you mentioned that you guys did therapy, do you feel
Mhm.
like during the dating phase should like, do you feel like it's something that they should even be looking into?
Therapy, like couples therapy?
Yeah, while they're dating.
Absolutely. There's never a bad time for therapy.
Okay.
Never. If you feel like there's a bad time for therapy, then you are too cocky. You're too arrogant, and pride comes before a fall, and a haughty spirit before a crash, as the scripture says.
That's cool scripture. I can't.
Listen,
You better quote that
the Bible don't
scripture.
lie. The Bible don't lie. It doesn't.
So
You
I
will
only
eat your
asked
own.
you.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, so I only asked you because in my head I'm like, okay, why, like, if this is even so toxic right now,
Mhm.
like I guess I would kind of want to see, like, am I holding on to something that I shouldn't be holding on to? Like, I
Mhm.
always try to think, like, to myself, like, at what point in time am I just like doing too much? Like,
Mhm.
okay, like, you know, I kind of like try to separate my red flags from my character flaws. And so I'm
Mm.
like, I'm noticing red flags and I'm going to therapy for these red flags, I should leave it alone. If these
Mm.
are character flaws that we want to address, then okay. But I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like in a relationship you need intensive therapy to deal with what this person is going through. If you're gonna get therapy by yourself, you go get therapy by yourself. But
Right.
I don't kind of would want to see, why do I have to, I would feel like I'm in that fixing stage. Like I'm trying
Mm.
to fix you.
Well, I think it's also about what's happening. If there's a breakdown in communication and you can no longer like there's everything's getting lost in translation, and
Okay.
he's adamant about how he feels and you're adamant about how you feel, and there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of you see things completely differently. Let's
Okay.
say he wants to, quit working and go to school full time, and you're just like, well, that puts all the responsibility on me. No one's necessarily wrong, but
Right.
obviously you need someone to mediate and say, what are your reasons for this? So you can come to a mutual understanding. I feel like that's different than, saying,
I agree.
I can't live with this person. Then,
I agree.
yeah.
I agree. I agree. Because for me, that is perfectly fine. I completely agree with that. But I can't sit there in therapy with you and I know like you're gonna be extremely toxic for me.
Hmm.
And I would feel like for me in that situation, I'm trying to fix you.
Well, and also that's where having a professional is key, because when he and I met the therapist, um, I think we probably had one phone conversation with him, but when we separated and he started to hear my side of what was happening, and he had talked to my ex fiance before me, and then he spoke to me, and he
Okay.
asked me some questions, and he asked me point blank, period, are you afraid of him?
Hmm.
And I broke down because I didn't think that he was going to get there. I thought my answers were so well rehearsed, because the goal
Wow.
of when he initiated the therapy was my ex fiance, who was like, maybe we should get therapy, because I think
Oh,
he was ready to go. His
yeah.
goal was that we were going to get therapy and we were going to fix the issue. And by the time the therapist spoke to me, he was like, you need to get out of there. And he said to me, I will never forget these words. He said, if you tell him what I've told you, we will never speak again. I'm telling you. And that's how you know you need to go. And Tabitha, so said, so done. I think we had a fight, and I was like, well, Dr. Such and Such said that you're the problem, and da 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 da. Never. The therapy was canceled. The card was declined. Okay.
Of
I
course.
could,
Of course.
the doctor was suddenly the problem. The professional knew nothing. And yeah,
Oh
I
my
mean,
good. Of
all of it.
course.
Yeah. How did I say after that? I don't know. But yeah.
I mean, but I feel like
I,
it just kind of circles back to what we were saying in the beginning because you even said like when it came to therapy, like when you're talking with the professional, your words were so rehearsed. And, you know, even beforehand, like not telling your family, yeah, a lot of it was probably like saving yourself from the embarrassment, also not wanting to acknowledge the fact that you were in an abusive relationship. But
mhm.
it goes back to protecting this black man that had no
Yes.
to protect you.
Tabitha, I was so convinced that the world had done him wrong, and that
Oh,
I was like, if not, then who? If not me to take
oh,
sympathy on someone who's been kicked around by this world, then what am I here for? How can I claim to love someone who is damaged, and I'm damaged too, and yet I can't stand him at his worst, but I love him at his best. I love the gifts he gives me. I love the sacrifices he's willing to make for me. I love the trips that we're going on together, and yet I can't stand to see him get a little upset about something. That was my mentality. I mean, when I saw him propose to me, of course, I'd never been proposed to. So I was like, that takes an enormous amount of courage and vulnerability. And he was nothing if not vulnerable. I mean, a little too vulnerable because, his emotions were always at 10. But
yeah.
I was just like, yeah, this is what love looks like. You have to love the complete person for all of his flaws. If I'm going to say for better or worse, this is worse. It was better. Now it's worse. Girl,
But it did nothing for you. Like you didn't walk away like like if anything, you said you had at that point in time you walked away saying to yourself like I'll never be in a relationship again.
hmm.
Go to, you know, not wanting to even date within your culture. Um this man was not in your culture if I remember from our conversation. You're Jamaican and he was American?
He was American, yeah.
Yes, but he was black.
Yeah,
Um how did that in any way shape or but did that in any way shape your idea of being in a relationship with a black man?
100%. Yeah, because I knew Jamaican men to be abusive. Like that was the key personality or one of the personality traits of Jamaican men, or so I associated. I mean, like I said, my father, Jamaican, still living in Jamaica now. He's abusive. My grandfather before him, Jamaican, abusive, because there are no repercussions in Jamaica if you're beating your wife or if you're treating your girlfriend like garbage. I mean, I even witnessed not the actual abuse, but the after effects of the immediate abuse of when my father was remarried to my stepmother and she came to me crying and she was, he probably had just done something to her. I don't know. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. When I was visiting him for the summer. So in my head, I was like, oh, as long as he's not a Jamaican, I'm good. I can handle it. That would never
Mm,
happen if it's an American because they know we were crazy. They would never try it. Yeah, dead wrong. Needed to be humble for sure. Oh, and then to answer your question, so no, it wasn't a clean break because, by then we had shared everything, bank accounts, you know, gym memberships. So, I mean, our phone plan, T-Mobile. So we had to see each other afterward too. And
mm.
nothing like that happened because he wasn't, like I said, scary or abusive to me directly. It was his words and his actions and his temper. So we did have to meet up a couple times. Um,
How was
and
that for
even,
you? Like
I
during
mean,
those.
I was a wreck. I mean, the anxiety was always through the roof. I had already been on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication at that time. Yeah. So I was definitely not feeling safe, but we met in like a public place, gave him the phone back and, exchanged keys and all of that and made sure everything was like done. So it was safe. But I remember even then, his interpretation of what had happened was just like, we just broke up because, he was like telling me, I just want you to feel open and feel free. Like the next time you fall in love, I really want you to fall in love and just like, and I'm just
Like
like, dude,
you.
as if I was so withdrawn because I was afraid to love instead of like just wanting to get away from a psychopath. You know what I mean?
I
Like I was,
mean, what the heck? And it's just I, with somebody like that, it's like if I don't walk away, I'm gonna kill you
and
because
then
you're
honestly, I cyberbullied him for a while after that. I was
really.
like, oh yeah, I sent him like DMs and I would block him and then unblock him, send him a long paragraph about how much I hated him and then block him again. I did that like 2 or 3 times to try to some kind of cathartic experience or to make myself feel like I'm fully over it until I finally was just like, okay, this, the opposite of love is not hate. It's what is the word? Oh God, I lost it.
Okay.
It's indifference. It's indifference.
Oh, okay. I was
So
like,
me showing him hate was not proving that I was over it. It was me actually being over it and moving on fully. And I realized that probably like a year after we broke up.
yeah, for sure. That's how you know you've truly moved on. Like you said, the indifference. Um, so now
Hmm.
you have started dating again, which is great because I feel like we all get to that point where we're like we come from a really bad relationship and we're like, I'm never dating again. I'm just gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna be the single fine auntie. Just that's it.
Yeah.
But you took that pain, you healed from it, you're still healing. I don't feel like the healing process ends. I feel like we continue to heal. There are things that even in this conversation that may have come up that you're like, damn, I didn't even realize that. Like it could have been like a new or you might realize it now, you realize it later, whatever the case may be. But you're still in this healing process, but you decided during your healing process to open yourself up to the idea of love again.
Hmm.
What made you decide that?
Well, I'd actually dated another black man. I kind of went to the opposite opposite extreme. Well, I dated a thug. Okay, no whole bar, just a complete. I think I wanted to be protected so much, and he was. Oh my God, talk about a heart of gold. He was the sweetest guy. Still is. He had his flaws, but I felt 100% safe with him all the time. I remember when I first got my tonsils taken out, like he stayed with me for 6 days and literally nursed me back to health. It was so, and that's what won me. I was like, let's give it a go. It didn't last long. We probably dated for a month or so. Um, but we're still good friends. I like went on a road trip with him to meet his family, and we pretended we were still together when we weren't, and I was okay with that. Took pictures with his family, we grilled and everything. It was, and I told him, I was like, listen, I'm not ready for a serious thing, but I love you. I will always love you. Like if you ever need anything from me, that's fine. But he never did. He was just always willing to give, and he was so tender. But he was a gangster. Like
Say like, you know what? I've learned these gangsters out here, they do have like I feel like that tough exterior is to hide that ooey
hmm
gooey heart.
baby.
But
Yeah.
thought because you're like, oh, he's a thug, he's a gangster. I'm like, oh my God, like, was he abusive too? Because usually that's like that's the stereotype, that's the bias that's placed
hmm
on gangsters, thugs. So that was really interesting to see like the opposite of that. So do you feel like being in his love, being in his care, being in his protection basically opened up your heart to say, okay, like Amelia, this can still happen.
Oh yeah, I will definitely give him credit for that. Even though I knew I didn't want a long-term commitment with him, I
Mm-hmm.
flirted with the idea, and it was for the first time in a long time that I even flirted with the idea of committing to someone again. And knowing that it would be okay. And more importantly, it was the first time that I had reestablished completely new boundaries, and
Mm-hmm.
I challenged myself to stick to my boundaries. By that time, I was in therapy too, so that helped. But it was for the first time that I was like, now you're going to express what is not okay, and you're
Right.
going to see what happens. And the fact that he respected them was huge. And I was like, oh, okay, you can keep doing this. You can keep saying what is not allowed to happen and let that be okay. And there's not a question mark, it's a period. That's it.
Yeah, I love that. I completely agree. I've even had to do that for myself. And you had said it earlier, but or you said it in the last episode, but not knowing your worth, not knowing who you are, you'll accept things. And you'll accept a lot actually.
hmm
Because what you want is that love, what you want is that care. And I realized the moment I realized, dang Tab, like I love myself. I realized it was loving myself was enough. That even if you couldn't give
Yeah,
me what I wanted, fine. Like on to the next, somebody else will. Thanks. Like
right,
I'm not, and like you said,
right.
I made my standard clear. It's either you
hmm
with me or you're not. And I'm giving you the option to leave right now because I'm
There,
not afraid to drop you. I used to be, I used to be hesitant. What I used to do, I used to say, God, can you just make this person break up with me just so I could like
I, girl,
I used to ask God
girl,
the person break up with me because I didn't want to put my foot down.
and they
And
never will,
huh?
and they won't. They
No,
won't do it.
no.
That's too
So
easy.
yeah, exactly. So I'm like now in a place it's like, no, Tab, you put your foot down. If you're not okay with something, you're not okay with it, and let that be it. Because somebody else, whoever, is gonna be willing to satisfy that,
Yeah.
is gonna be okay with that, and they're gonna step up to the plate, quite honestly.
hmm
Because I think we can both agree that we're both women that are worth being stepped up to the plate for. And
Period.
I period. And I'm so happy for you and this new journey that you have and
Thank you.
your new journey of dating. Um, did you want to talk about that date that we talked about?
Yes. My
Let's talk
first
about it
no.
briefly.
I'm like, okay, so white guy. I met him online. We talked online for a year during the quarantine.
Oh wow.
First, yeah.
Wild then. I don't know why I thought you guys had like it had been a couple months.
Well, no, no, yeah. So we met back in about probably June, before I met my little thug. I met him, and he expressed that he wasn't going to meet up with anyone. His mom was sickly or whatever. So we had to
Okay.
wait quite a while. And we did not meet up until the week before I was ready to leave South Carolina to move to Georgia.
Yeah.
And he was like, I have to meet you. And I was like, no, 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 it's over. We're not doing that. And because I mean, realistically, I'd already fallen for him. I hope he never sees this. Oh my gosh. But I'd fallen for him like through through the phone. We talked for the first time when we talked for 7 hours. I mean, literally I watched the sun come up on the phone with him and I was like, I'm not done. I'm no no, no. I'm not done. I need
And you weren't being catfished, right?
everyone told me I was. Everyone was like, oh, he's not worth it. You were dating a 300-pound, 85-year-old person. Not no fat shaming. But he
That's
was,
so funny.
yeah. I thought he wasn't real. I was like, this is too good to be true. There's something wrong with him. He got kids, he got a second family. Um, no, he was just a sweetheart. And so the first date we met, he walked through the door looking like Tom Hanks from Castaway because we were both quarantined. And I was still like, oh crap. You know, that feeling again where you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna know you for a long time. A long time. So we're still talking. Um,
Okay.
I mean, we just described it as magical. It was magical meeting him. And I was
Wow.
so resistant. I'm like, I am not going to date a white guy because all my life my mother was like, yo, you're going to date a white guy. You're going to marry a white man. And my aunts did. All three of my aunts did. And I was just like, no, I am for the culture. I will
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
abandon my kings.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
And
completely understand what you're saying.
and when I met him, I'm like, who is that for? Who is that for? If I'm meeting someone who checks all the boxes and gets me, for me, and we're talking, we met at a tiny little table in a dark restaurant, um, and we shared just a drink. We didn't even eat food, and we sat there and we talked for 2 hours, and it just flowed. I mean, even the pauses were short but not awkward. It just flowed. I felt like I met my person. Now I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but
Nice.
I was gagged. I was like, not this Caucasian boy, not him making me fall. No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
That is
No.
so funny. But it's really interesting because even you said like, who am I doing it for? Because I even
Mhm.
also hear growing up, a friend of mine said to me not too long ago, she was like, oh, Tabs, I feel like you're gonna be with a white person. And I'm like, what give, what gave that out? Like, why would you even say that? If anything, I'm like, I'm attracted to black men. Like, the darker the better. I want to see skin glisten, baby. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's not who I end up with. I
Yeah,
mean, at the end of the day, like, I had to come to myself and say, I just want someone to take care of me. I want
right.
someone that truly be my partner
Mhm.
in life. And I don't want to feel like I'm beneath you.
Right,
I don't want to ever feel disrespected. And more
right,
importantly, I don't want anyone to be mean to me.
right.
I always say that. And it's so true because it's true. I don't want anyone to be mean to me. I don't want anyone to not consider my feelings, consider my
Oh,
story.
yeah.
And even more so, like, he's a man, so he's gonna have difficulty regardless. I would just at least want to have his back. Yeah, in my perfect fantasy world, it would be like, okay, I'm gonna support this black man, black love. But if that's not what comes to me, I'm not gonna sweat that.
Hmm.
Whatever happens will happen how it's supposed to. And the
Hmm.
love I'm supposed to receive, if it comes packaged as a white man, I'm here.
Hmm.
Here's your
Yeah.
back queen. Period.
Mhm. Period.
Period.
My little charming. I mean, yeah, he won me over with the way he talked to me. I mean, nothing was off the table, nothing was none of my business. He was an open
Mm,
book. And even when I tried to yell at him, I was like, I don't need to learn about you. I'm never going to meet you. This is a waste of my time. He met me with nothing but respect and calmness and fairness and kindness. And he's been that way from start to finish. And I have attempted to rip him a new one multiple times. And he never loses his cool. And when I met him in person, the aura he gave off was just great. And he was perfectly willing to share his faults and his flaws and his moments of shame and his moments of regret and the times where he was not his best self. And none of it was a red flag for me. It was more so just a flawed person who was not abusive or did not want to be abusive, but he was just also a genuinely good person in general. Selfless, kind, and, you know, a work in progress, but workable.
I think that's it. I mean, I've learned that red flags don't turn green,
Mm-mm.
and you even said it, like, you don't red flags, and I think that is very important to note. And like you said, he's flawed. We are all flawed. We all have
Mm-hmm.
those flaws. It's a matter of finding someone that's going to be willing to like work with you through those flaws and sees value in you. And I don't know where it's going to go for you either, but of course, all I would ever want is for you to be treated with respect, for you to be valued, for you to feel cherished. And if this person is doing that now, my only prayer is that they will continue to do that. If anything, they'll continue to exceed your expectations, and
Mm-hmm.
that you guys will just somehow realize that you're closer than you would have ever been. Of course, you're going to take it a day at a time and see what happens. But thank you so much for sharing your story with not only me, but of course, it's on a podcast, so it's with many other people that, believe it or not, definitely relate to you and relate to your story. They our story. They see our difficulty with wanting to protect Black men, but also um, realizing that, I mean,
It's not your job to fix him.
it's not our job to fix him at all. I mean, that's not even only that's any man.
Yeah.
I'm not
It, the thing is, just fix you first. Fix you first.
for sure. Fix you first. I'm just gonna do a quick little prayer
Yes,
to end
please.
the episode.
Yes.
Quick little prayer. You're ready? I'm gonna go ahead and bow my head. All right. Gracious Father, I just want to tell you thank you so much for Amelia. Thank you so much for this episode. Thank you for giving her the opportunity to share her story. There are so many things that we go through in life, and a lot of the time we're wondering, why me? And I'm sure during those times, Amelia thought, why me? But we also appreciate that there's a greater purpose, greater reason that we do not see. And if it's for someone listening right now that benefited from this, I thank you for them. And I pray that if they're in that situation right now, that you remove those glasses and they can walk into their freedom. I thank you for the things that you're doing in Amelia's life and where you're taking her. And I pray that this gentleman that's in her life will be someone that will stay if it's within your will. And I just thank you, Lord God, for all of our listeners who are in a season of wanting to be in a relationship or just confused and wanting to date someone within their culture and vice versa. It's just so many different aspects of life that are so confusing. I just pray that you'll make it all very clear. I pray, Lord God, for healing, not only for me, but for myself and the many others that need it. In Jesus' mighty name, I pray, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank
And thanks. Okay, sorry, I like interrupted you.
you. That's fine.
I was just gonna say, guys, it doesn't rain always, but it's raining today. So please go stand in the rain.